guest speaker tonight, and you can see that the recording has been notification is up. So, all right. Oh, sorry.
Okay. So it's my pleasure to introduce Dana Arvidson from Minnesota Estate Sales. Dana and I have actually had the pleasure of working together recently on a project at my home. It's just a wonderful business that she has, and I'm excited for her to share that with everyone and how she can help people downsize, declutter, and all kinds of stuff. So get rid of amazing things in your home. So thank you, Dana.
All right, thank you. All right, well, thank you for that introduction, and thank you so much for having me. My original plan was to be in Minnesota, and I actually purchased a home in Florida on January 3rd, and I've been here for the last month kind of getting it together. I'm still a Minnesota resident and will continue to live there, and this will be my vacation home. And I heard you guys got a big snowstorm, so I was really glad that I was in Florida during that. So anyway, my apologies that I'm not there personally, and thank you again for having me. So I've owned Estate Sales Minnesota since 2013, just to give you a little bit of background about myself. Fell in love with the idea of vintage and used and antique items growing up as a child, going to antique sales and auctions and stuff with my parents. I am a trained, I went to college. I'm a trained probation officer, and I left that career of 20 years to do what I do now because I find it's my true passion to work in this industry. I have worked with several families that have had a family member with hoarding tendencies. Sometimes that family member is still living, and sometimes that family member has been deceased. And I know that it can be a very daunting task, and we have definitely conquered quite a few of those situations. I can talk a little bit about my business and what I do. So we offer a couple different sorts of services. The first one is where most of you may be familiar with. We do a traditional in-home estate sale, where we definitely prefer the person is moved out of the home during this process. We come in and clean out cabinets, closets, drawers, set up tables, and display everything for sale, do the pricing, the advertising. And with this process, it's a very public format where anybody can come into the home that sees the advertisement. This has become my least preferred way to do an estate sale. It does work and it is effective, but it's not as private and discreet as doing it online. So as Jackie mentioned, we did help her with the sale, her and her husband. They weren't moving. They just were getting rid of some excessive pieces. And so we arranged for professional movers to move those items from their home and take them to our offsite warehouse location. So that's just kind of a different service that we can offer. We also do online estate sale auctions in the home. We use a company called KBID, which is the largest Midwest platform for auctions. And we are their top estate sale company right now for handling this sort of process. I can give you an example when I've dealt with, a hoarding type situation. There was a woman who sadly passed away. She was actually very well known in the community, and sadly, nobody knew what was going on kind of behind the scenes in her home. And her attorney was her executor. And we came in after they had taken out, I want to say, 8 to 9 dumpsters full. I wish we would have been in charge before that, because I'm sure they threw away some valuable things. And we came in and were able to do a very discreet estate sale for her, kind of helped clean up the home, that kind of thing, so that even though she was deceased, it still gave her some dignity, so that when people came to pick up this stuff, they didn't see any kind of hoard or any kind of mess, if that makes sense. Does anybody have any questions for me that you like particularly want me to address? Because I could go on and on with different stories and situations. I'm sure that you all can with different clients and situations that you've worked with.
I have a question, Dana.
Okay.
Sorry, on the opposite side of the table here, but can you give us an idea of, with like the process of removing the stuff and taking it to your offsite warehouse, what are the types of things that you typically see in that type of a sale?
Okay, so that's a good question. So my warehouse is not huge, and so I am very particular about what I take. We don't just take anything and everything. Oftentimes I will go into a home and I will say, okay, we can take this, we can take this, and we can take this, and then this should be donated, or this is just not even sellable. We take a lot of smaller stuff. So for example, right now I took in a vintage robot collection, which just sounds kind of interesting, but a woman's ex-husband passed away and he had this huge robot collection. So we took in that. I have another woman who had vintage pottery. So we took in that. We take in a lot of jewelry, purses, like high-end purses, shoes, handbags, clothing, jewelry. I like to do when it's like I said, smaller, like collections of stuff. I had a woman that had 250 Steiff bears. Now I do have a business partner who happens to be my daughter. She has a similar business to mine, just a different, she uses a different auction platform, and her warehouse is twice the size of mine. So if I'm not able to take in somebody's, let's just say there was like, a lot of furniture that had some really good value and we didn't have the space for it, I do have other resources to connect people with that. Does that answer your question? I'm not.
Oh, okay, so she wasn't
I'm like,
hearing.
does that answer your question, Jennifer?
Yeah.
Sorry,
Oh.
Dana, it's Jackie. So with
Oh.
regard to the process that we did with you, it was more furniture based.
Right.
So,
And we had room at that time. So it just kind
Yeah.
of depends on what went, like if we have room. I just had somebody, just as an example, message me. His sister bought $11,000 worth of furniture and sadly she passed away 2 months later. And so now they're looking to sell it, but I have to have him send me pictures of it before I can agree to take it in because I may not have room for all of it.
sure. So can you give people an idea of, because we're in the recycling and repurpose industry ourselves, and a lot of
Mhm.
people who are trying to either help or downsize with a loved one or move collections or furniture or things off, what type of return or value is there in moving material through a business like yours?
Oh, so it's a really difficult question to answer because everything has a different value and a different price point. I will tell people when I meet with them, and I always have a free consultation, that if they have to hire movers, I'll say, this is worth it for you to spend $500 or $600 on movers because you'll get that money back plus some. And if it's not worth it, then I will just tell them that they're better off, calling bridging to donate it and giving them other resources to prevent it from going into the landfill. So that's really hard to answer because again, it depends on, what it is. We sold a bunch of pottery recently, and that was, definitely financially worth it for that person to bring in this pottery she had inherited instead of just, throwing it away or donating because she had no idea what to do with it. It wasn't her taste. I would say for the most part, it's definitely worth it for people as long as, they have that consultation so that I can say, this is worth it. Now, we did have a woman that I met with recently. She has significant hoarding tendencies and she's working with a professional organizer, and 80% of the stuff she wanted me to sell, I had to say no to because it just wasn't, it was just better to be donated. She collected coffee mugs, to give you an idea, and cat dishes, food dishes. And the cost for her organizer to box up all that and get it to me, by the time she paid that and then paid us commission, it would be unfair to her. So I just said those items were better off to be donated where they could be, better used that way. Does that make sense?
Oh, no, for sure. There's a huge value in your consultation, and that's what I wanted to get to. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
I believe in being very, very honest and direct with people during the consultation. I learned a valuable lesson many, many years ago. I worked with an elderly woman, and I kind of knew in my heart that her sale just wasn't going to be financially fruitful for her. But she so just really wanted an estate sale, and I did it anyway. And she, of course, was upset by the end results. And I felt really bad that I wasn't just very honest and upfront with her. And so I've learned to make sure that I'm upfront with people, even if it hurts their feelings or they get upset. it's worth it that they know at the beginning than waiting at the end and find out what they had just doesn't sell.
So do you charge for your consultation?
No, not at all.
Just lost the link to the meeting.
Sorry.
Gail asked if I charge for a consultation, and no, there's no charge for a consultation.
Can I ask a question?
Yep, absolutely.
I was curious, what other kind of items do people most commonly overvalue, that they expect that they would get a decent amount of money back and really that resale value is just not there?
A lot of clear glassware, like crystal and clear glassware. It's just, it has to have like a hallmark on it, like, you know, Waterford or that kind of thing. Hummels. Sometimes people have collected hundreds and hundreds of Hummels, and you know, they thinking it was a good retirement for their dollar. Collector plates, they don't sell. I mean, they have to, you know, those blue plates with the Danish plates, the blue and white plates are the most common, and those really only have value if they're from like the late 1800s. I've had clients that have had hundreds of them, and I had a client that I lost the job because I was told him his parents had, I think, was 800 of them. Wow. And I think all the siblings thought they were going to go to Tahiti when they sold these plates on vacation. And I'm like, there's not going to sell. So he hired another company, and I knew that other company, and guess what? The plates didn't sell. So plates is a huge one. Snow babies. I'm trying to think of the other precious moments, Hummels, clear glassware, that kind of thing. It just doesn't really have a lot of value, unfortunately.
Sure, thank you.
What are some things that are surprisingly have a lot of value? For instance, my husband's in a beer can. He's actually the president of his beer collectible stuff, right? And he collects stuff pre-prohibition, and it's really special to some people. But there are beer cans that are worth $40,000.
And beer cans is not, I'll be honest, beer cans is not one of my specialties.
The beer,
correct. I was going to say the beer can collections that I have seen are not probably what your husband is familiar with. So I've not seen some of those $40,000 beer cans, but I have seen beer can collections, and the ones I've seen have not been very valuable.
But are there items, I pulled that one out because it's an oddball, but are there things like that that people don't really understand are valuable? That people
well, there could be like a wide gamut of things. Like I can go through a house and point out stuff and say, you know, well, this, you know, this, and this is valuable, but they may just have like a random item. I met with a gentleman about a year ago, and it was a small home in Richfield. Not really a lot there that was worth having an estate sale. I think I took less than 20 items, but he had a aluminum, 1950s Christmas tree complete in a box with the rotating light. And he thought that was garbage. He was going to throw it away. And I think I sold it for $450 for him. So, I mean, it's just different things like that. Of course, mid-century modern is still in. So, some people think, oh, that's so ugly. We've had that forever. And I'm like, okay, that table is worth $800. So mid-century modern is still pretty hot. And, of course, that tree was, mid-century modern. And he was going to put it in the garbage, and I saved it.
Great. Anyone online have questions? No?
Actually, I have one. Just out of curiosity, what about someone who has collected a lot of clothing that is still in the bag, still, tags attached? Is there any value in that?
It depends on the brand. Vintage clothes can do very well. We do a lot of like name brand clothes. So we just did a sale for a family where the woman had a lot of St. John. And I bet you just in her closet alone, if we had added up all the retail, was probably at least $300,000 to $350,000 worth of St. John. Now, did the family recoup, close to that? no, they may have got like 10,000 when we were done or 15,000, but it was better than they were going to have somebody just come in and donate it all. So it depends on the brand. Of course, if it's Louis or Prada, high-end stuff like St. John, it's going to sell well. If it's stuff from like Target, Kohl's, JC Penney's, I try to get people more to donate that, but I also do have a vintage clothing buyer that I bring in for things that we don't sell. I can bring in a clothing buyer who then could buy even more before they end up getting donated.
Okay, thank you.
Does Catherine have a question?
Yeah, does Bleak fall in the same category as Hummels?
No, that Bleak is better than Hummels.
Okay. And the old Hummels are worthless too?
Well, they're not worthless. They're just not as valuable as a lot of people who bought copious amounts of them think they are. And they do sell better online than they do in an in-person sale, because when you sell them online, you're getting a broader exposure nationwide. So you might get somebody who, broke that one 20 years ago and they've been looking for it, or reminds them of, their grandma's Hummels. So they're not junk. They still can sell. It's just not as valuable as, people sometimes think that this one Hummel is worth $500 and it might only be worth $30.
Because I have some that I believe came stateside, either shortly after the war or World War II, or they came when people came over because of use Google Lens to find
Yep.
when they were made.
And if they're in really good condition, they definitely could have a little bit more value. But they don't have any, chips or cracks.
What about Laredos?
I don't know what a Laredo is.
They're like dancing dolls or figurines. They're tall. They're very large.
Yadros? Do you mean Yadros?
You mean,
Yeah.
oh, Yadro. Thank you.
Yadro.
Yes, Yadros, again, those do much better online, and those can have some decent value depending on which ones they are.
Oh.
Same with like Bing and Grendel figurines and other Danish makers like that. I know Yadro is not Danish, but yes, Yadro definitely sells much better online, especially if you still have the box.
No, I don't have the boxes on them, but
Okay.
they're ancient, so I don't know the history on those.
Right.
I'm guessing at some of the Hummels based on the age and where family members were stationed. But and who gave them to my mother? Because my mother was kind of the dumping ground for everything, and I'm still trying to get rid of stuff.
Some of the
Years
fun
later.
Yeah, some of the fun parts is when you have something like that that's older, is trying to figure out when they stopped making that mold. And sometimes I am able to find databases that say when something was, stopped being made. And that the one thing that I stress to all my clients is there's no guarantee what anything is going to sell for. We can do our best by taking clear pictures, but because somebody paid, $10,000 for a table doesn't mean that I'm going to get close to that. Our process, I have found, is the best way to help people sell things and get it out of a house or a condo or an apartment so that it can be sold, because the new buyer doesn't want their stuff.
Well, I just want it to go where somebody would enjoy it.
Exactly. And that's what we try to do.
Okay.
I love trying to prevent things from getting thrown away. And I tell people that, it's a dishonor to get a dumpster when somebody moves or passes and throw everything away. And it's just not a good way to honor our parents, aunts and uncles and grandpas or grandmas, whoever passes to dump everything. We want to try to reduce and reuse it whenever we can.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All right,
Gail?
I think
We just have one more question, Dana. With regard to people finding your actual auctions, how would they do that?
They can go to my website, which is estatesalesminnesota.com, and click on current auctions, and it will direct you to another link, and it has all of our auctions listed. I think I have 6 listed right now. And of those 6, one of those is a very significant hoarding situation. And you will not be able to tell. I can tell you that.
Great. Well, at this time, we'll go ahead and stop the recording. I thank you so much for taking our questions. We might have a few more after the recording ends, but definitely appreciate your expertise. And
You're very welcome.
I remember watching your company during COVID, how it adapted really well to
Oh, thank you.
the situation and the way that you treat your guests and the people that you're selling for has always impressed me. So,
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that a lot.